Good evening, everyone. It's Nick here speaking to you for criticalhitentertainment.net. Now, on Friday, another big show arrived on Netflix, that of course being Lost in Space. This is the 2018 iteration of the original 1965, which was owned by CBS, I think, at the time. Interestingly enough, CBS actually turned down Star Trek, the original series of Star Trek, in favor of Lost in Space. Isn't that ironic? And funny enough, in 2017, was it 2017? I think it was 2017, CBS then of course bought the rights for Star Trek Discovery, so that's quite an ironic little twist of fate there. Anyway, just a little bit of, I suppose, pub knowledge quiz stuff going on there. So the show of course is set in space, quite a few years in the future, and follows a family, the Robertsons, who are I think it's the 24th team of PBS. 24 groups of people have left Earth because of some actually as yet described, and it's supposed to be a catastrophic event, maybe even from outside, like a meteorite or something like that, but throughout the series certain things come up. Maybe it's a war over sort of resources, but yeah, we're not exactly sure why. Anyway, they are moving along with a whole host of other people who are sort of the best in their field. You have to do a test, in other words, in order to get onto the ship that will take you to Alpha Centauri. And yeah, most of the people who have got there are happy, but sadly with the 24th batch of humans who are going to be going out there, something rather terrible happens, and that is their, I suppose, fleet is attacked by a robot, which is rather different to the original story, and even the 1998, was it 98? There was another movie that came up, we don't really want to talk about that, it was pretty fucking terrible actually, even though it had Gary Oldman, what the hell? Anyway, so this robot decides to attack people on the space station, and people jump into their crafts, hoping to get away, and for some strange reason they can't get away, and that strange reason is what looks like a tear in space, I suppose like a black hole. And yes, they fall into it along with the space station that all these ships are docked with, and they basically crash land, the ships that is, crash land onto a mysterious planet that is habitable. I suppose you'd call it a, what is it, a Class H planet? I forget what they used in Star Trek. Class H? I think it's Class H, could be wrong. Anyway, it's basically in the Goldilocks zone. It has water, it has animals, it's got plants, etc, etc. And they crash land and shit happens, basically. For the first couple of episodes, I feel very, very sorry for the Robertsons. They really are handed out some bad beats, man. Luckily, Will Robertson, played by, where is he over here? I actually really like the guy, I thought it was quite fun. Where is he? Maxwell Jenkins, that's right. He plays the 11-year-old Will Robertson, who is very good with math, etc, though he's quite a coward, and those are sort of things, or demons that he has to sort of, I suppose, grow with throughout the show. But before I go into the character growth, the actors are actually really great. We have Molly Parker, who plays Maureen Robertson. She's the sort of the captain or the commander of their particular ship, and she's got a PhD in rocket science or something like that, so she's a pretty damn smart woman. She is joined by her husband, though they are estranged, and even looking at divorce potentially, who is Toby Stephens, who plays John Robertson. I really like that, because it brings a sort of, I suppose, a more contemporary feel to it. You know, we realise now that families are not perfect. Of course, back in 1965, you wouldn't have something like this on TV, it'd be bloody scandalous. So that's why they've updated that at least, so that most people can kind of, I suppose, get on with it. Joined by them is Taylor Russell, who plays Judy Robertson. She is, I suppose, African American, and is from the first marriage of Maureen Robertson. So before Maureen met John, she had a daughter who's 18 years old and is also a doctor. And then afterwards she had Penny Robertson, played by Mina Sundwell. Ginger! Also, to me, the best person, or best character in the whole thing. And as I said to you, Will Robertson, played by Maxwell Jenkins. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of these kids, and I thought at first, oh hell, oh god, because the movie that came out in the 90s with Gary Goldman and other people was, oh, the kid looks so irritating. I just went, but luckily this kid doesn't irritate you. I think at first he kind of does a little bit, and there are certain things where you just want to go, come on boy, but you can see that he actually is just a young kid, he's a bit of an idiot when it comes to real life, but he's smart when it comes to maths and robotics, etc, etc. Other people, of course, that we have to mention over here is Parker Posey, who plays the Dr. Smith. Now, the original Dr. Smith was a guy, so they changed that over here to include June Harris, or Dr. Smith, her real name is June Harris. And Parker Posey, wow, she's batshit insane. She is, oh man, a proper psychopath, like proper sociopath, who has a very twisted past. Is not a particularly good person because of the cards that she was handed out. And so she tries to keep people on the planet, basically, because she doesn't want to go back to Earth, because she's going to face a trial. She's done some very naughty things in the first episode, you see. And yeah, if she goes back to Earth, she's probably going to end up locked up forever. So she's trying her damnedest to stay on the planet, whether that is through manipulating people, or I think they call it gaslighting. That's what Wikipedia says, where you sow seeds of doubt into other people so that what you're saying might hold more credibility. So she goes around and she whispers into the air, kind of like Wormtongue, I suppose, from Lord of the Rings. But that being said, her character still does have a heart. She talks about her brother, which I think might be it's a figure that she sort of changes depending on the person she's talking to. But there is someone that was close to her. And in this particular iteration, Will sort of fills that. He's the young kid. She does take a sort of bonding, very small bonding, but you can see the way that the actress, and she really is fantastic, acts differently, and she sort of removes him from certain situations that might lead to his harm. So she does have a heart. I do think that, and we'll talk a little bit more about the minuses over here. We also have, what's his name, Ignacio Ciricchio as Don West. He's a sort of roughneck smuggling guy. Kind of reminded me of old Han Solo. He's a very lovable rogue. He's not really that naughty. I mean, he sort of smuggles alcohol, that kind of thing. And he's a lot of fun in this. He really is great. I think they should have given him a bit more at the beginning to do. But yeah, he certainly comes into a role later on, and he's definitely necessary for the family to do, get to where they want to get. Now, in the first couple of episodes, I would say that the first episode, which was actually directed by Neil Marshall, my bad, and he is actually the potential. He is not potential. He is going to be directing Hellboy in 2019. Now, Neil, in the first episode, he does the first two, so it's kind of like a pilot, two-parter. The first episode, to me, was a little bit crammed with stuff. So much is going on for a 45 to 55 minute long episode. It doesn't actually say here, called Impact. That you kind of get confused. At first I was like, bloody hell, I'm probably going to have to watch this again. Then the second episode comes along and things sort of calm down a little bit. You get that sort of, not formulaic, though that does come later, but it gets into a pace that you can kind of understand and appreciate. Because, like I say, there's so much going on, you really want to make sure that you're not missing stuff. And I think the first episode does contain a lot that you will miss, and it might be worth going back, or at least just watching the entire series, because it will mention constantly things that happened in the first episode. Excuse me. So Neil Marshall, he's a very, very good director, I have to say. The special effects are fantastic in this show. Not with just Neil Marshall, we got a whole bunch of people, from Tim Southam to Alice Troughton to Deborah Chow. A lot of people directing the episodes, and you can see each one brings with them a certain style. I really liked Deborah Chow, as a matter of fact, her style. I'm not going to say anything because it's going to give loads of spoilers away. But yeah, there's a lot to play with in this, and I think that's one of the reasons I like this. It is Lost in Space 2018. It's not Lost in Space 2065. Sorry, 1965, which was a very campy affair and a little bit silly. I mean, it was hammy as fuck. It really was. And I've read a couple of critics. And I wonder I really do wonder about some of these people saying that this lacks soul, it lacks character because there's no campness in it. Well, I'm afraid if you put most kids in front of a show that is campy, like the original, especially with that bloody robot, they will lose interest and they will roam away. They will go watch something else or go play whatever the hell games they're playing. So I do like the fact that they made it a little edgier, as I think a lot of these critics are using, to explain it. It certainly is more violent than the original one, and this brings us to Robot, which is voiced by, not that he gets many words to say, Brian Steele. Sounds appropriate, doesn't it? Steely, S-T-E-E-L-E. I am Robot. And he basically just says, danger, Will, Robertson, and a few other things. But the robot is absolutely awesome. I want one like this. Firstly, the thing can damage. It can do a lot of damage. And it also is very, I suppose, like a dog. It literally has issues with its memory. Okay, I'm not going to I don't want to ruin anything over here. It has amnesia, and I think a lot of the thread or the themes throughout this show are about memory and what you do with the memories. Do you embrace your past? Do you accept your past and then overcome it and accept it and move forward? How far can you go with that? If someone's done something really bad in their past, do you forgive them? or do you just do you lock them up, throw the key away, or do you move forward? Now you're on a planet and you're stuck, for want of a better word, with people that you don't really know. So you're stuck in a very harsh environment with your own demons. As I mentioned earlier, the husband and wife are estranged. He is a Marine, and he thinks like a Marine. He's just man, kind of thing. And I see a lot of reviewers also had a problem with him. I actually had a problem with him at the very beginning, the first 2-3 episodes, because the character doesn't get to flourish. But a lot of people had a problem with him because they're saying it's very stereotypical, of a guy being the brawn and the girls being the brains. And I see, to a certain degree, I do agree with that. But if these critics had actually watched the entire series, and I'm damn sure that a lot of these people don't. They watch 5 hours, they read other critics who have also only watched 5 hours, and then they draw the same conclusions and they put it in their own words. They don't watch the entire show, because if you say the character of, what's his, John Robertson, if you're stating things like the character doesn't grow, then you have not watched the entire show. If you're saying that Maureen, the brainiac, okay, the main sort of, I suppose, lead in this as the mission commander, is sort of not open to her children, then you have not watched the entire thing, because you have not seen how these characters develop. And it really irritates me and makes a lot of people hate critics, because these critics are just off-shooting, they're biting onto something, and they're also loving that whole bandwagon of everything sucks. Especially if it's out on Netflix. Just look what they did with Bright. Torn to pieces. Thankfully Netflix is like this to them, and there will be a Bright 2, 3, Christ, I don't know how many, but I'm looking forward to it. Had a lot of fun with Bright. And I'm damn sure we're going to get a season 2 out of this one. So yes, great things about it is that it is greatly paced, except for the first episode. And when I say greatly paced, it's not action, okay? There's a lot of character development here and a lot of family issues, because you're dealing with the oldest child, 18-year-old Judy, who doesn't like, John, because John is number 2, so he's a stepdad, and he's never been there for her, so she's not particularly happy with the guy. And she's been bringing up her 2 younger siblings, Will and Penny, by herself with her mother. Her mother, of course, is always busy, and that leads to a lot of anxiety and issues. I also do like the character, as I mentioned, the character progression here, because Judy, for example, she has something happens to her very, very close to the beginning of the series, and for 5-6 episodes, she's dealing with the sort of repercussions of that, sort of PTSD thing. And a lot of shows don't do that. They'll have one episode, like a flash episode, not a monster episode, but the main focus will be her getting straight. And they don't do that in here. It's peppered throughout, and I think the full stretch of 10 hours, or it's probably a little bit more than 10 hours, really justifies a lot of the things that happens at the beginning in seeing how people have learned and grown in this. In particular, Will, for example, and his relationship with the robot, which is quite a strenuous one towards the end. And at the very beginning, of course, he treats it like a dog. Everything's happy with this, but if this dog's a Rottweiler and has steel teeth, then yeah, you're going to be pretty fucking careful when you feed this Rottweiler. On the negative side of this, just going back to Parker Posey as June Harris or Dr. Smith, I really do like the character, and in the first, 5 episodes, she's fantastic, because you don't really know much about her. You do find out some stuff about her, but I'm just sad that they didn't show enough of her past. There's one episode where they spend 5 minutes just going over something that's quite quickly dealt with. So her motivations are not 100% convincing. You know why she doesn't want to go back to Earth? Check. You know why she's kind of screwed up in the head because of family reasons, and you know why those family things have led her to this particular thing? Check. But I would have liked to have seen a bit more trauma that would lead to creating a sociopath at this level, because she really is a bastard, okay? She's not so nice. She does have moments of redeeming qualities that are only redeeming because she needs that particular thing at a certain time, which is kind of, I suppose, serendipitous to the characters around her. But I do think that they could have fleshed her out a lot more. And what else? What are the other negatives? Oh, sometimes certain story threads just disappear, which is irritating. I can imagine it's on the cutting room floor, though. And certain characters disappear out of nowhere. And again, I have no major problems with that, but I can imagine people going, well, where the hell did he come from? Kind of story. Though later you do kind of find out a little bit about a certain character and how this person came to be where they were. But yeah, so there's a lot of sort of reduced storytelling with the more peripheral characters. I loved, as I mentioned over here about Mina, Penny Robertson, the redhead girl. Now, I've read a couple of people saying that this has no humour. Compared to the original Camp 1, it doesn't. This is nothing like that, okay? It's like comparing the original Battlestar Galactica to the the most recent Battlestar Galactica that deals with themes of destiny and religion, etc., and is pretty fucking dark, okay? Very little humor in Battlestar Galactica. That is not to say that there is no humor in this. Some of the great bits of humor came out of the characters' movements, for example. I remember this one particular scene with Penny in a sort of rover, I suppose. And she's the author girl, okay? So she's a daughter, and she likes writing. So she's a lot more creative when she looks at things. She's far more emotional. She has a sort of slight love interest thing happening over here. Whereas her older sister, or half-sister, is the doctor. And so she's sort of crashing down in this rover. And the microphone, the sort of walkie-talkie thing, is hanging. And because she's constantly dipsy, like, she's like watching this thing going like this before she realizes, actually, maybe I should just take it and talk. Oh, yeah. And someone was going on about how there's no fun in this. There's no humor. There's a lot of humor in it, okay? It's just not slapstick like the original. There's a lot of great humor, for example, with the father, John. And even with the wife, even though they have a strenuous relationship because they're about to break, divorce because he wants to go to war. As I said to you, we're not quite sure what's happening on Earth, but there is a war going on. Will, in one episode, actually says, I respect you, Dad, because you're trying to save the world. So it sounds like they were fighting against aliens, but they don't mention aliens, other than the robot. That's the first time that they've seen aliens. I mean, Will, in the first episode, is even recording the alien when he first meets him, okay? So he's like, this is the first time in ever so maybe it's not aliens on planet Earth. So yeah, but anyway, the banter between the characters as it goes on, and as the family start to sort of ingratiate John back into the family, sort of bring him back in, is there. It's palpable, and the relationships is there too. I mean, the heart in this is phenomenal. It's really beautiful. I mean, you really do care about the characters. There's one or two, as I said, peripheral characters you don't really give a shit about, but the majority of the ones, the main ones, especially the Robertsons, you do care about. There's some other characters on the outside. What is his name? He's I think he's Japanese, who is a scientist, and even from the side from him with his family, his small little family in the background, you can see the connection between them. It's very nice. It's very hard, like I say. This is a great show. I think, as Trevor said, for the family. This is something you can binge watch with your children, PG, okay? Because there is killing and there's murder, okay? There's no blood with the murdering. There is people cutting their heads quite often. But this is a great show for the family. I think kids would sit still for a couple of episodes. And I think parents, would appreciate it too. So it's sitting on 71% right now on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm going to give us easy 80%. It definitely does have its flaws in regards to one or two particular characters, and it does leave a lot open. I mean, they don't explain anything, and that's more than likely because they want a season 2 and 3. Which is another thing that's negative here. I don't mind people not explaining things, but you have to give a little bit of a hook so that people want to know what's going on. The ending is great, and it certainly lends itself, as I said, to the second season, but they should have put a little bit more in, as far as the story is concerned, and I'm concerned, to flesh out certain very, very big assumptions that you make based on very little evidence. So I think, yeah, they could have tightened that up just a little bit, the script. So I think, apart from just tightening it up a little bit, yeah, the rest of it is absolutely fantastic. Your family's going to enjoy it, the kids are going to like it. It is a little bit violent at certain times. Also, I suppose PG-10 would probably be in order. But yeah, go out and watch it, guys, and tell us what you think in the comments below or online. I'd like to see what actually Copen has to say about this. And yeah, don't listen to the naysayers. There seems to be a lot of these critics out there at the moment that just hate everything that Netflix makes. Catch you guys later, and thanks for watching.